Hello and a very warm welcome back to the Potters Pundits, and we're back for more predicted lineups. Now, it's a massive game against Blackburn on Saturday. Of course, 3 losses on the bounce now for the Potters. So, do we make changes? How many changes do we make? And, well, loads of questions to be answered. Loads of players that could be in the team, but be a tough one. Who does Schumacher go for? Here is my predicted 11 for Saturday's game. Now, it looks like the kind of go-to formation, of course, for Schumacher is the 4-3-3. And, I mean, of course, the start of the kind of the reign under Schumacher, we were playing some fantastic football with that formation. Of course, Berger and Jun Ho, kind of players like that under that formation, were having a superb time. And, of course, apart from kind of the Leicester game where they were literally a kind of gear above us, they were fantastic and they outplayed us and we weren't good enough. I don't really think you can look at the formation and say that's the issue. I don't know. I think 4-3-3 is the one for us. It's just who you have that personnel in the team for me. So I'll stick with a 4-3-3 in this one. So in goal, last game, of course, against Leicester, we had Jack Bonham in goal, and 2 of the goals were penalties, so you can't really fault him for them. Other ones where it's not as though it's an error from him. It's nothing like that. So I don't think you could be too harsh on Jack Bonham. But Daniel Iverson's back for this game, back available. And I think he'll just slot straight in. I mean, nothing against Bonham. I don't even think he kind of deserves to straight away have been dropped. I mean, I predicted it. So Schumacher clearly does kind of prefer Iverson. Moving on to the back line now, of course, Chamadou is back for this game, coming back from an illness and the African Cup of Nations. But it's a really tough one because it's a back 4. You've got kind of Ben Wilmot back. You've got kind of all your kind of defensive players back now. And it apart from kind of Ender Stevens, who'd you go for? And it was a really tough one. I feel like, what was the reason why we didn't kind of bust a gut to get a left back in? Was it that we just didn't get it over the line, or was it that he's got full faith that Jordan Thompson can play there and that's where he wants him to play? The versatility of a player like Jordan Thompson is exactly what we need. And if I'm being honest, you can't be too harsh on him at all, because the role that he's playing, as well as coming inside, I think is going to work. But if we're going to get exploited like that, where at times there's gaps, what do you do? So for me, I'm going to stick with Jordan Thompson at left back. Especially against Blackburn, he'll offer us that kind of difference in there. And I don't think really, not being harsh on Blackburn, but I don't think really we'll be tested if we kind of get caught short. And then moving over to the right-hand side, the right-back role, it's another tough one because you've got Hoover, you've got Gooch, you've got Chamadou, loads of players there that can play that kind of role. All have got like their strengths and weaknesses. And some recently have becoming kind of had quite a bit of harsh criticism, which I'm not going to be one to judge, but I just feel like if a player's had a bad game, how's it going to motivate one of our players, one of our people that put on the badge for the club? How's that going to motivate them? It's just silly things like that. But for me, I'm going to go for Lyndon Gooch at the right back role. Maybe harsh on Chamadou, who of course has come back from illness, and Hoover as well. But I just feel like whacking that experience at the back with Gooch and of course Thompson as well, it's just going to kind of solidify us a bit more. And I prefer to have experience at the back, which obviously, yes, Gooch brings, but also he brings that attacking side as well. He brings both of them, and I feel like having him at right back really does kind of suit us. And then moving on to the 2 centre-backs, and this one's the interesting one. It really, really is. And I was really close because for me, it's obviously between 3. Of course, Clark is there, but there clearly isn't kind of a partnership there that's going to be made with him at the back. So it's between obviously Wilmot, McNally and Rose. And it's a really tough one because I like Wilmot because he brings in that side of the game that we need from centre-backs that are going to play it quickly, going to play it forward, and are going to allow kind of defence to attack to be moved quickly. And you saw it glimpses where he switched the play to the wing, kind of brought that width to the team, and that's what we need. And if I'm being totally honest, Michael Rose tried that. There was one pass where he put it through the lines, and that's exactly what we need, but then tried it again kind of 10-15 minutes later and it didn't work. And of course against the Leicester team you can easily be punished for it in a way. But I don't know. Luke McNally, obviously last season, is probably, can admit, not being harsh on him. Maybe he did have a better season at Coventry than he does at Stoke. I don't think that's being too harsh, but I don't think you can blame him at all. But for me, it's a tough one because who do you swap at the back? Do you bring Wilmot off and whack McNally in, or do you bring Rose off and whack McNally in there? Because if you think about it, we were having that partnership of McNally and Rose, which before the 3 losses on the bounce was the kind of go-to partnership because Wilmot wasn't there. So it's a really tough one. But for me, it might be harsh on Rose because we've seen glimpses of him where he's been fantastic for us. But for me, I just feel like Wilmot brings the experience. McNally's got loads of potential anyway, and I think why can't we just bring him into the team? So for me, I'm going to go for Luke McNally and Ben Wilmot at the back, kind of bringing in that experience, but also, of course, Luke McNally, who's got that drive, the pizzazz that hopefully can move the ball forward for us. Then moving over to the midfield 3, it's one of them where it's another tough one because there's been times, I mean, when I was predicting the team last week, I was saying how it was Berger, Cundle and Baker because that was the 3 in the middle that kind of started that solidity. And against a Leicester team, maybe having that bit more of a defensive team would have helped more. Changed it up a little bit. I still think Berger should be at the back, kind of the back of the 3. A superb player. I mean, maybe hasn't been able to get on the ball as much and move it about as much as he liked, but teams like Leicester know exactly what they're going to do. They want to dominate the midfield, want to kind of play it around you, and unfortunately we were outclassed. But for me, Berger's still a superb player, absolutely should be in the lineup. And yeah, so of course the captain and the one for me who should always be on the team sheet. Then moving on to the 2 in front of him. It's an interesting one, this one, because you've got players now that are coming back. I think the only one in midfield that we don't have on kind of available is Josh Laurent. So real tough one for me. But with obviously Thompson on the left hand side of the defensive line, I'm going to go for Cundle and John Ho because yes, I've seen some things where it's saying about what does Cundle offer us, but sometimes in the midfield you don't need the players that are going to bring the pizzazz and all that lot. A player that can bring that transition from defence to attack is exactly what you need, and sometimes you won't notice it. You really won't notice it, and it's times where if the ball's played a quick pass from the defence to attack straight away, or even breaking in the lines, it's what you need. And I really do think that Cundle will bring that. And then partnered with kind of John Ho, who is a superb player. I really am a massive fan of him. And I feel like if kind of Cundle's playing that 8 role, that more creativity in the midfield can come from John Ho, which maybe is a little bit harsh on Baker because he of course brings that creativity as well, but it's kind of a similar role to what Cundle does. So maybe having that kind of John Ho role in there against a Blackburn team who have struggled at the back, I feel like could be really threatening. So for me, I'll go for Berger, Cundle and John Ho in the midfield. And then moving over to our front 3. Now, it's such an interesting one because when you're not getting the goals in and you're not kind of having them chances, which of course we didn't have against Leicester, it's one of them where you go, what do you do? Do you keep the front 3 so that they can start kind of creating that partnership and kind of seeing if they can work their magic? But it's a really tough one. Loads is going on behind the scenes, especially kind of before and after the Leicester game. It was such a big thing with quite a few of the players. But for me, of course, the signings that we brought in, they wouldn't have been brought in January if they're not going to be, of course, wanted to be a big impact for Schumacher. So for me, up top, I'm going to go for Niall Ennis. I did the matchday preview with Blackburn Overseas Dirk, and he said about how it wasn't really the style of play that suited Ennis, but Schumacher obviously has coached him last season at Plymouth and knows exactly how to bring out the best out of him. So I feel like he'll come straight in. Of course, had a little cameo against Leicester, which obviously wouldn't have been as ideal as he would have liked. But, I mean, against his old team, he'll know exactly what they bring to the table, how he can then maybe work his magic around them. For me, it just makes sense to have him up top. Not being harsh on, obviously, like kind of May or Campbell, anything like that. Of course, with Campbell, sometimes it's like, I mean, he had his chance against, or chances against Leicester where he was through and stuff like that where, yes, he didn't put it away, but having that chance and being up there is much better than having a striker that's not going to do anything. I don't think you can ever be too harsh on a player that's come back from injury. Yes, he hasn't hit the form as recently as what he was doing kind of during lockdown, but he's had 2 kind of full games where, or stuff like that, where he's coming to the side, and it's not as though he's having no impact, but then it's not as though he's obviously putting it back of the net. It's so harsh because on strikers you can just come straight at him. If you're not going to put it in the back of the net, what you're doing. But then let's look at the bigger picture and all that lot. But for me, let's just whack Niall Ennis there. I feel like it'll just make sense to have him up top. And then moving over to the wing, and of course another one where with players being back, loads and loads of options there. And for me, I think the one that is kind of staring me right in the face, I'm thinking, you know what, it makes the most sense at the moment, is of course Andre Vidigal on the left, who at the end of the day is our top scorer. He's the one that's known how to put it in the back of the net the most times, but of course he can show his potential. And then on the right hand side, there's loads and loads. It's so weird that we've got, I mean, you could play Shamadou up there because he could play as a more attacking player. Lloris is there, Haksabanovic, who could be on the left hand side as well. Jun Ho, but of course I've put Jun Ho in the midfield, which can kind of bring that best out of him in the kind of attacking phase. But for me, I'm going to go for Million Manouf, of course, the new signing who we brought in on January deadline day. I just think it makes sense. I mean, it gets announced kind of today, but it's filmed on Wednesday, this is. So it might not be allowed to play because of the permits and stuff, but I think just whack him straight in the team. He looks like a really exciting player. If not, then maybe Lloris comes in at the right. He's played a few times since coming back from injury, kind of being in that starting 11 for the Potters. But yeah, I'm just going to go for Manouf. Of course, it's another front three that haven't played together, but is it going to be the right one? You never know. You really don't know. But especially Ennis up top, Schumacher knows what he can bring. That's the style of play we want to play. So let's have a see. It'll be interesting to see. It's a massive, massive game for the boys. And the next 2 games, Blackburn and QPR, is where it proves what we're doing this season. It really does. It's either we're in a relegation scrap or it's same old. Unfortunately, we're kind of in and around 16th, and that's our season again. But I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe if Campbell starts up top, or maybe we switch formation and have a 3 at the back and play kind of a 3-5-2-1, something like that. I really don't know. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed starting 11 against Blackburn. A massive, massive game. I'll be watching it. I hope you guys will be too, and I'll see you next time.